Now, in the last session, we were trying to see an overview of an introduction to the Maven tool. And in that, I was just telling you what is exactly is Maven and what is its advantage. And to jump on further, first let's understand what is the architecture of Maven. Okay. So now, what exactly is Maven? Maven is a build tool. So if you take a build tool, now, any kind of build tool that you take basically will require something called as a configuration file. Okay, so a configuration file is nothing but a specific file for a project through which you will be able to tell that build tool on what to do. So that if you have a project based on Java, now what exactly you have to do, how the project is defined, all those details will be specific to that file only. So like this, for every project, you will be having a specific configuration file through which you will be defining the details about that project to Maven. No matter Maven, any other tool that you take specifically on the build side, it will be having a configuration file related to project. So like this, for each project, you will be having one configuration file. In the same way, now in Maven also, for a particular project on which you are going to work, you will be having a configuration file. And that configuration file, which will be specific for a project, is what we call it as pom.xml, where it is a XML file and the name of the file is POM. So we'll talk about in details on what the contents of it. As of now, you just have to know that there is a configuration file called pom.xml in which we will be giving all the details about the project. So assume that you have a project in which you will be creating a specific file called pom.xml, which will have all the details about your project. And it is the same workspace in which you will be having all the source files related to that project. So let us assume that way. So basically, these pom.xml will have all the details about your project in terms of where is the file, what and all are the details you have in it. And in it, whatever the goals that you're going to specify to the project will be basically available. Once again, in the last session, if you remember, I said anything that you're going to specify to Maven will be through something called as goals, where this goals will invoke a plugins, and this plugins will actually call a task. So how exactly does Maven know what is it has to do for a particular project is what we will be giving it in the configuration file. So basically in the configuration, you will be defining what are the goals that you need to work on so that when you call Maven for that project, it will try to read a file called pom.xml, which is available in the current directory of your execution. So whenever you are trying to call Maven, you will go inside a workspace in which you will be having a specific configuration file called pom.xml, and it will try to read the details about that pom.xml, and based on that, whatever goals that you have specified, it will try to run. Okay, so the first thing that Maven does when you try to execute is it will search for a file called pom.xml, which is the configuration file available in the same directory from where you are invoking Maven. So it is always a practice that we should be having pom.xml under your project workspace or a directory where you have all the source code of your project. And when you invoke Maven, it will try to search for this file called pom.xml in the same directory. And when you invoke it, what it will do is after searching for the pom.xml file, it will try to do the task based on what you have said. So in that, basically, it will try to take two things. First, it will take list of source on which you have to perform some operation. That is, do you want to compile the file, or do you want to delete some file, or do you want to create a package like that? What exactly you are going to do, and for that, what and all files are going to be there? It will take a list. And second, it will take a list of resources needed for this. So when you say a resource is nothing but a plugin using which it will be performing a task. Now, if I say do a compilation on your project, what and all files are there, those details, it will try to read it from the pom.xml. And from that, it will try to now do a list of tasks it has to do. So if your interest is to do a compilation that you have specified by the goal, it will have to take a list of resources that is needed for compiling these files. So that way, the second thing that it does is it will take a list of sources and resources on which it is going to perform. Basically, these resources are nothing but the plugins using which it will be doing a particular task, or it could also be some dependencies. So whatever is needed for performing a task, it will take all the list. So that way, other than the source code, whatever the resources that is needed in terms of plugins and the dependencies, where will it search? So basically, in your machine, when you're running Maven, there will be a directory called as local repository, which is nothing but a simple directory available in your machine. Now, in that directory, it will check whether those files are available. So remember, if you execute Maven, first on your current directory, it will check whether there is a file called pom.xml. From that, it will try to take a list of all the sources on which it has to do some action. And for performing an action which you have specified through the goal, it will try to take a list of resources which is needed. Resources, which is nothing but what and all are the plugins needed and what and all are the dependents for that. So all those details other than the source will be checked in a particular file called local repository, where local repository is nothing but a directory in your machine which gets created when you run Maven. And it is the directory in which it will be checking for all the resources, that is the plugin or the dependencies. So remember, now when you run Maven for the first time, this local repository will get created and the file whatever you need will not be available. So without the sources, it cannot do anything. So that is how, if a resource is not available in this local directory called local repository, what Maven will do is it will go to the internet, and in the internet, there is a location called remote repository from which it will be trying to pick the file, download it to the local repository, and from here it will be using it. So remember, for the first time when you are running Maven, whatever plugins or the resources that it needs, it will not be there in the local repository. So it will try to download it from the internet and try to put it into a folder called local repository, and from here it will be trying to use. So that is how, when you're running Maven, pretty much internet is mandatory, because for the first time it will try to download automatically all the plugins that is needed, and it will try to use it from the local repository, so that the next time when you run the same command, all the resources that is needed, if it is available in the local repository, it will pick it up. So remember this, it will take a list of sources and resources, and whatever sources is there, it will be present in the same folder, and whatever resources is needed, it will go to the local repository, check whether it is available. If it is not available, it will go to the internet, download it, and then use it. In case if it is not available in the local repository as well as in the remote repository, then it will fail. So we'll talk about those scenarios later, but otherwise it will search for all the dependencies and the libraries or plugins needed from this local repository. If it is not available, it will check on the remote repository and it will try to download it. Okay, so this is the architecture on which Maven works. So remember, whenever we are going to work on Maven, this is how it is going to be. So there will be a workspace which will be acting as your project directory, and inside that you will be having a specific configuration file called pom.xml, and inside that you will be defining what are the details that you want to tell to Maven. And when you call Maven, you will be calling Maven inside this workspace and in the same directory where you have the pom.xml, so that you call Maven by passing a goal to it. So Maven will try to read the pom.xml, and based on that, it will try to take a list of sources. And for that, whatever resources is needed, it will take a list and it will try to search whether it is available in the local repository. If it is not available, it will go to the internet, try to download it from the remote repository to the local repository, and from here it will try to use it.